Dear Mattsons, I'm terrible at communicating with my kids. I often yell at them and lose my temper. Is it too late to turn from this and communicate better? What are some good communication tips? Sincerely, hot-headed mama. Well, I appreciate your honesty, hot-headed mama, because you're not alone. Getting angry and frustrated with our kids is definitely common. So if you're in that boat, let's just normalize it. There's maybe Mother Teresa. I don't know. There's got to be some mamas out there.
She was single.
She
had a lot of kids, though.
Yeah, she did.
Right?
But the idea of just having grace for yourself to go, yes, being angry and frustrated and getting to our max is part of being a parent. However, there's two things we want to talk about is one, regulating, and then how to actually own, because it's not always what we do, but what we do after what we did that can matter most with our kids. So let's review maybe regulating.
Yeah, so regulating first is kind of what we need to do in ourselves. And as adults, it's really upon us to take the lead in this space, right? I can't, kids are going to have a harder time with this, and teens for sure, because their brains are under construction. But to regulate is you got to know what's going on in your own body. And if you understand where those physical symptoms show up, and for me, they show up in my jaw, I clench my jaw, and I do this with my fist. I didn't even know I did that for a long time. And a lot of guys, you may appreciate that, you may not have a clue as to where that shows up, but knowing where that shows up in your body allows you to catch yourself. Yeah. That's the whole point, right? To catch yourself before you really kind of lose it and get to that space. And you can call the time out if you need to, right? Just take a breather but then say when the time in will be, right? Yeah. So you're not leaving anybody hanging there.
There's a scale from 1 to 10. It's a great way for us to figure out where we're at. 1 is like, I'm peaceful, I'm laying on a beach, I have no children needing anything from me. And 10 is everybody and their grandma needs something from me, right? And I'm feeling so overwhelmed. It's been a really bad day. And everything under the sun has gone wrong.
At your worst.
And your body is just intense. And if you are well, I guess males have a hormonal pattern as well, but also women, particularly us mamas, depending on if you've just had a child or where you're at in the spectrum. Maybe you're going through menopause, but regardless, there's a hormonal piece that's playing a role and could be running interference with how we're feeling in our patients for that day. And so 1 to 10, always asking myself, where am I at? It's really hard to be a patient parent when our bodies are from a 5 to a 10. We're really bad communicators at that point. And that's when we end up saying things we don't mean, reacting to our kids in ways. So really trying our best to set ourselves up for success in trying to keep our bodies regulated. Then we can help our littles who are always dysregulated, just depending on whatever it is. So practical tips, literally drinking water, getting good sleep, exercising, being able to actually check in and saying, how am I feeling right now? 1 to 10, what is the emotion? And if I'm feeling angry, it's a physical emotion. You probably need to go do something with that, like go exercise or punch something, not your children, not your spouse, but literally a pillow maybe.
Yeah, make sure you eat and go to the bathroom when you have to go to the bathroom. It's like we talk with leaders all the time and they just press through stuff and wonder why they were so reactionary, myself included, which is just that hangry thing, right? So it's just take care of your needs and regulate. That's the first part, is to kind of notice what's going on in you. And then you can be in a space, right, where you can help your child, whatever age they are, do likewise. Yeah. Figure out what they need to do to regulate and help them, show them how, but also talk about how that's hard and how you have to work at it too.
Yeah, and then owning. So when you mess up and you've done something over here, then you need to go back and actually tell your child, will you forgive me for raising my voice? If that's your pattern and you're always asking for your yelling and then you're asking forgiveness, your child's not going to really trust that change is going to happen. So really the piece is owning it. Will you forgive me for yelling at you that you didn't deserve to be talked to like that? And that's the mature response you're modeling to your kids, how to own things when you do that as well. And then being able to say, next time, mommy's going to step back and take a time out before we talk about you throwing your toys again. So being able to have that ongoing conversation with our kids is a part of parenting. It's not a one time, it's an ongoing. And not too long ago, I had to ask forgiveness from my daughter. I said some really hurtful words. I was dysregulated and was over here, had a really bad day, responded poorly to her. And later that night, I had to pull her aside and say, will you forgive me? What I said was not at all what I mean. And I reframed it and told her I loved her. And I asked her for forgiveness, and she forgave me. And now from that point, I've got to do some repair, right?
Yeah, the power of forgiveness is powerful. It's so much different than I'm sorry. I'm sorry doesn't mean a whole lot in our world anymore. And will you forgive me is powerful, especially when you're modeling that to children that are smaller than you and younger than you, right? And it gives them a voice, which is what you're trying to teach them to have anyway, right? That I have a voice, that you have a voice, and that's how the real world works. But forgiveness is saying, look, I've impacted you, and I'm asking you, can you forgive me? And, as followers of Jesus, that of course that we're called to a depth of forgiveness and understanding of forgiveness as he's forgiven us. And that's not shallow or cheap. We have to practice that. We have to learn really what that means. And that happens in the trenches in the real life of perfectly imperfect parenting.
Yeah. You're the right person for the job, and we're cheering you on.